At this time, we'll now move on to communications, beginning with President Wilkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well, back home safe, handling this beginning of online class as well as you can. I know it's a bit of an adjustment, but hopefully it kind of smooths out as the week goes on. If you're like me, you're just probably struggling to stay focused on actual school stuff and not all the millions of distractions around you. So for the beginning of my update in terms of emergency relief funds, as you're all probably aware, we exhausted about $163,000 of our student fees to serve around 559 students. And the process is moving on, and most students are either receiving their money or have been notified that they're getting it. So that process has moved pretty quickly. We want to thank everybody that's been helping us around campus with that. Currently, I'm working with administration as well as the foundation to help roll out a larger scale fund for students. This should hopefully launch by the end of the week. I believe the plan is that tomorrow the foundation will kind of launch the campaign for it and everything. And then by Friday, the hope is that we'll have an application for students that they can use to apply. Dean O'Neill and I are currently working on what that application will look like. Our intent is that it will be a streamlined process for students. We don't want them to have to fill out 1 million pages of paperwork. Ideally, it'll be 1 page, just a couple questions, and we don't really need students to identify so much of their need. We understand that need's important, but we don't want students to have to give us basically like a 500-page essay or anything like that of why they have this need. We just want them to kind of help articulate what that looks like so we can get that money to students. So that process will start hopefully in the next few days, and really excited that that's kind of being picked up campus-wide, not just here in ASUW. So I want to thank you all again for your dedication and hard work. In the past couple of weeks, I know it's been really difficult with everything moving online, having to go home, stuff like that. So thank you for all staying engaged, being supportive, and I don't want that to go unnoticed going forward. So my thanks to you as well as others. Also want to thank our pro staff for how supportive and helpful they've been the last couple of weeks, for us executives as well as senators, just kind of moving forward. Handling kind of these unprecedented times have been really helpful in supporting us, making it a lot easier. VP Houghton and I met with the president last week for some quick updates. We discussed a couple financial aspects of student life going forward. So there's like fees. My understanding is there's not a plan to do refunding for fees. I know that some campuses have kind of started that. If that's something that we feel like is important to kind of take up, happy to kind of have that discussion. But it sounds like for the most part, they're going to try to utilize what fees there are and try to do what they can to kind of keep those programs available through distance. So like with the counseling center and stuff like that, those services are still available. I know student health is doing telemedicine unless you need to come in physically. So they're trying to utilize those services as much as they can. Another issue that was brought up was apartment leases. So for those who live in the university apartments, there's some students who are having troubles if they need to get out of their lease. So those are conversations that are happening too. And then we have another meeting with the president on the 7th. My hope is to send an email out at the end of this week to update students kind of what ASUW is doing and help promote the resources that are not on campus, but available to students as we all head home. Kind of just updates, because I know communication is super vital, and that at this rate, really the student listserv email we have is probably our best way to communicate with students. So we'll probably be using that a bit more for the rest of the year. I just want to remind everybody to be patient with faculty as we go into these online courses. As I said, it's going to be tough for everybody kind of transitioning, but especially for our faculty to kind of adjust their classes. Obviously, if you had a class that you weren't planning to do online, that's a bit difficult, let alone given about 3 weeks to figure that out. So if you have any questions about some of the academic affairs aspects too, in terms of the SU or pass-fail grade exemptions, things like that, course evaluations, feel free to reach out to me and I can try to answer those questions. It took me long enough, but I finally got a bill written for the facilities endowment, as y'all see tonight. Already I have a couple amendments I'm going to be making next week, so hopefully I'll be able to attend those committee meetings for those who it goes to bring those forward. Nothing super major, just a couple other things to add and change. Overall, I know adjustments are really hard, so if you have any concerns that I could help with or pro staff, feel free to reach out. We'll be happy to help and kind of assist. I know that ASUW is not always the most easy thing to fit in your life, let alone when there's a million other things going on. So feel free to reach out if processes aren't working, and I'm sure Vice President Houghton and Chief Legislative Affairs Overland can talk more about that with Senate stuff. And then overall, I just hope we can finish our year on a strong note and continue to be great representatives for the students from wherever we are. So Thank you.
Thank you. Chief of Legislative Affairs Holversland.
Point of order. Can you, Chief of Staff Talamantes has a report.
Oh, I didn't.
Point of order. I had a question for President Wilkins.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Senator Rubano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious, why is the I understand like some services can be done online, but like things like Half Acre or whatever, which I know several students utilize, like they've spoken to me about the fact that they're unhappy that they can't like go exercise and they're still paying for the gym. Why aren't they refunding some of those kinds of things?
I think those conversations are happening mainly this week. The president kind of told us that last week their goal was to talk more about student wellness aspects overall with residence hall, stuff like that. This week they kind of want to tackle more of the financial side. He told us in that meeting that the plan is to refund the Half Acre fee and prorate it for the rest of the semester. So I don't know if there's a full communication about that yet, but that seems to be the conversation that he told us about. So I know the Half Acre fee at least is one that has been discussed, but it sounds like this week they're kind of having more of those conversations about fees. But like I said, if that's something that we're really passionate about, we want to take up and kind of voice to administration, I'd be happy to bring those thoughts forward too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Reveal. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it's important to remember that a lot of student fees pay for pro staff salaries. So access to it is definitely, I understand how you'd want a refund since you can't utilize that service anymore, but it's not just paying for the building. So just keep that in mind. I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is Jason still on?
Yeah, he should be. Yeah, there he is.
President Wilkins, I just have a question. So, sorry, what about those kids? So let's say I have a lot of friends who are engineering majors or in bio, and they have labs and they don't want to. What happens to those kids like those who have to drop those classes? Will they get reimbursed for any of that? Because I mean, I know a lot of kids can't take, I personally could not do a lab online. I would not learn from it. So what about, do those kids get anything back?
So my understanding is in terms of refunds for classes, we've passed the withdrawal date in which you get any funds back. And that's just the normal way that's set up. So my understanding is they'll continue to go with that for the rest of the semester is you won't get any money back, but they did make the change to where students can withdraw up to the end of the semester. So rather than being, I think, April 10th or 17th is the final day you withdraw up to the end of classes. So there won't be any financial compensation in that sense, but that's just because by the time all of this happened, we've already passed that add drop date to which you could get any sort of refund.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And there was a question on how to get on the speaking list. So I guess it's come to my attention. If you go to the bottom of the participant list, there's a raise your hand function, and that will let both Senator Mulhall and the Chief of Legislative Affairs know who wants to speak. Just because with so many people, it's hard to keep track of who wants to ask who a question. So keep that in mind as well. So with that, Chief of Staff Talamantes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everybody. I hope you've had a good break and are settling into your classes, at least it being the second day of us going to this new system. I just wanted to update you on some of the decisions that we've made about paying executives. The executive leadership met 2 weeks ago to discuss what we wanted to do with executives now that it's going to be remote. Although there's lots of work that we have that we're kind of predicated on being on campus, the executives will still continue to work remotely, and we will be brainstorming different ideas this week and ways that we can wrap up our administration from home in an effective manner. Some general work they'll be doing is writing up their transition document, preparing to advertise their job positions in their classes, most likely through the announcement sections and bio courses since everybody's kind of getting adjusted to the online format. And then also thinking about exit interviews, which President Wilkins and I will be conducting in the next few weeks. So if you all have any ways our executive staff and leadership could improve, please feel free to shoot me an email with your comments and criticisms. That way we can let the next administration know what went smoothly, what we should improve upon, all that kind of stuff. So that way next year's leadership can have a better idea as to things that we can be doing better. I'll be meeting individually with the executives tomorrow and this Thursday to discuss not only the general work they'll be doing, but also some specific things about their position. Ultimately, we're kind of taking this week to kind of settle into this new arrangement and continually to social distance ourselves from other people. I recommend that you all do the same. I know that some of us are in Laramie and we're all kind of bored sitting at home, either alone or with roommates. But cases will only go down if we continue to do our part and not travel, especially in places like Colorado, staying inside, being away from people. I know the Wellness Center had just sent out an email recently about how they're offering virtual programming. If you all go to UW's campus recreation website, they have a section that's called Virtual Recreation and Wellness with a bunch of different virtual activities that they're offering through the fitness, wellness center, and the programs. Maybe that's the way we can stay board. But ultimately, I think we all need to kind of do our part in staying inside, keeping away from each other. But I hope everybody is well. Does anybody have any questions for me about executives? Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chief of Legislative Affairs, Hoversland.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a few things. I hope you all are doing well. You enjoyed your break and are settling in, as so many others have said. As you know, the IOC met multiple times over break, and I sent out those communications of updates on what was happened. So if you have more questions, feel free, and I'll open it up to questions at the end of my report. The legislative deadline is pushed back now because of all this craziness. So steering will be meeting at noon on Fridays. So if you have it in by like 9 o'clock on Friday mornings, that'd be awesome. That'd be much appreciated. And just let me know if you're intending to submit something so we can wait for you. My office hours, I'm not going to have really office hours, but I'm always checking my email. And so if you have questions or anything, feel free to email me, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible and fix different things. Just a note, the website is probably behind. We're trying to get that fixed daily just so that we can fix different things. I'm working on legislation. Hopefully it'll be done this week to revise the senatorial scholarship for this year or for this semester, just because obviously we can't really do many requirements, and actually be looking forward to, not this week, but next week, suspending the senatorial requirements and different things like that, because obviously we can't really fulfill them virtually. So I'll probably be doing it based on attendance and how often. So like and different things like that. So if you have feedback on that or input, definitely let me know. Send it to me through an email. It'll probably look something similar to what we have going into effect next year, but just strictly attendance based. And there might be something with committees on that, attending committee meetings. As for committees, reach out to your chairs if you have questions. They should be reaching out to you. Hopefully you're all meeting at least once this week just to kind of discuss what you're going to do going forward. I know there's not a lot that can be done like for student outreach and programming, but or RSO funding board, but we're like encouraging them to go through our working documents and fix those. I think this is a really good opportunity to do that because we can do that virtually. So if you see issues in our working documents, please let us know. We want to be productive going forward through the end of this administration, as I've said so many times. I would like to echo what the chief stats said with washing your hands for 20 seconds, social distancing, which also means physical distancing, 6 feet, different things like that. And I just want to thank everyone for being here. I know it's very different. I think this is the first time Senate's ever met over Zoom. So it's historical and it's really unprecedented. So thank you again to everyone for being here. And lastly, we're still going forward with scholarships for the leadership scholarship. That's the only one that hasn't been done. As for the service exchange scholarship, all those trips were canceled. So what we did with that one is refunded all of the trip leaders. They take a 1 credit class, so we paid them for that, just so you know about that. Are there any questions? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So for my report, nothing too substantive. I just kind of echo the comments of the rest of the executive team. It's been a lot of meetings the last couple of weeks, just kind of adjusting to the new way that we're doing things, both on campus and here in ASUW. meetings with our partners in student affairs, with the president, with our pro staff, with the rest of the executive office. And so at any point during this transition, if you have questions, concerns about the way we're doing things, or just you want to know how this works, reach out to me, reach out to our Chief of Legislative Affairs, and we can hopefully clear up any questions that you may have going forward as we close out the administration. Advisor Lozano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to echo sort of what you've been hearing, it's nice to see so many people online tonight. It's a strange time. It's really strange for professional staff. Working with students is why we're in the jobs we're in, and so it's really strange to lose that access to an opportunity to work with you. So I appreciate being with you tonight. Just to cover a couple of things that have maybe already been mentioned, but maybe offer a little bit more information. So one is talking about virtual student engagement, which is a campus-wide initiative that's sort of being spearheaded by our director from Cecil, Jeremy Davis. We actually will have our second student engagement meeting tomorrow, and it has folks from all over, not just Cecil, but the division and other places in campus. So we're bringing in partners in academic affairs, trying to figure out best things to provide for students that we can't provide in the way we have in the past. So a lot of conversations are taking place around those things, and a lot of people on campus are concerned about how do we keep students engaged. So those conversations are happening. As Chief of Staff mentioned, the Wellness Center is a great example. You can go see sort of some of the fruits of that labor and what people are doing online to try to help students stay engaged. So I also wanted to just make mention that the COVID task force that is being run on this campus has been working probably 12 to 14-hour days every day since students left campus, and really working hard to figure out what's the best way to support students during this time. Our vice president in our division, VP Chestnut, has been in every one of those meetings, has spent hours and hours and hours working tirelessly to figure out ways to help students through this time. And so I just wanted to publicly thank her for that work. And then also just in the Dean of Students realm, Dean O'Neill has been incredibly supportive, not only of students, but of the staff under the Dean of Students umbrella. And you've got a lot of really good people working hard to figure out how to get you through this time. So really just wanted to make sure that those two folks were mentioned, in addition to some of the folks that have been mentioned in other reports. I really wanted to give a huge shout out to our accountant, Shelley Schaaf. As the requests started coming in for the emergency fund that you all worked so hard to put together, Accountant Schaaf put in probably around 25 hours of work over the weekend immediately after that first weekend of spring break, and has continued to put in hour after hour working to get this money to students while keeping up with her regular daily tasks. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were aware just how hard Accountant Schaaf has been working for you, as well as the executive team. Just the amount of work that's gone into supporting students from this body has been really heartwarming. It's definitely why we're in the business we're in, as I said before. And then the last thing I wanted to offer is just a reminder that on the academic side of the house, registration opens tomorrow. So if you haven't had your advising appointment, try to figure out a time to get with your advisor virtually as soon as possible. As a former academic advisor, I'm also happy to answer any questions you might have about your academics. Of course, I can't give you your PERC number or anything like that. You still need to work with your academic advisor, but I'm happy to pitch in if you're having trouble getting a hold of somebody, or you just have a quick question. Shoot me an email, and I'd be happy to help with any academic advising questions you have, as well as anything ASUW related or anything related to UW. I'll try and help you out, find you answers. Like I said, lots of people are working tirelessly on behalf of students right now. And I've had almost daily contact with both Cecil Director Jeremy Davis and Dean of Students Ryan O'Neill. And so I can get some information from you pretty quickly if need be, if we can ensure that it's accurate and thought through. But those two folks have been very supportive of our staff during this time. So we're all here to help you out, and we're looking very much forward to the day where we can all be in the same room again together. But in the meantime, as has been said over and over, take care of yourselves, do the right thing as far as all the recommendations from the World Health Organization and other medical professionals, and we'll get through this together. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions for Advisor Lozano? If not, we will move on to ex officio reports, beginning with first year Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first year Senate met earlier tonight via Zoom for the first time, where we discussed Senate Bill 2695 and came to a conclusion regarding its passage. And we also had the first reading for Senate Bill 2697. Additionally, we will also be discussing changes and how to move forward with the first year Senate duties and priorities for the remainder of the school year in our drastically altered format that we now find ourselves in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Staff Senate?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are also conducting the rest of our meetings for this fiscal year via Zoom. Our first one is tomorrow, and I am anxious about how many boomers will be in the room utilizing Zoom, so we'll see how it goes. We've canceled staff recognition day, and that's pretty much it. We're just kind of working with the COVID task force, making sure the needs of staff across campus are being met. And we sure do miss all the students on campus. It's definitely an interesting institution without any students on it. So we miss you, and we hope to see you in the fall. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you. We'll now move on to committee reports, beginning with steering. And steering did meet yesterday afternoon. We determined that Fridays at noon is going to be our new meeting time. So we're looking forward to that. Oh. The dogs are going crazy. And then we looked at the piece of legislation that was good to us for first reading, and we will have a recommendation on that later. And we have advocacy, diversity, and policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report.
Thank you. Budget and planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We kind of reconfirmed our meeting time, and we will be meeting tomorrow via Zoom from 4 to 5 to discuss Senate Bill 2697. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And program and institutional development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. PID met today and discussed the legislation that was steered to us. We will move our meeting time moving forward so that all of our committee members can be in attendance. So we will have a new meeting time next week. Thank you.
Thank you. ASUW Funding Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We did not meet yesterday. I'm waiting. I sent an email out to the committee. So if you're on funding board, please email me back. I'm just checking to see everyone's availability still to see if our time still works. In the meantime, I've been working with Accountant Chafe and Director of ASUW Relations Good to work on a plan for the committee moving forward. So we'll be looking at finance policy, legislation, and then possibly some other things throughout the semester. So again, please just email me back if you're on funding board so that we can get going. But other than that, obviously all ASUW events are being canceled on campus, and then I assume generally conferences have been canceled. So not a ton going on for us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Student outreach and programming.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I sent out a doodle poll, and we'll be meeting at our regular time on Friday from noon to 1 via Zoom. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Elections Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Elections Committee will meet later this week. I've not figured out a time yet that works for everybody. So I will work to set that up, and then we will try to start figuring out how to hold an online election. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We'll now move on to college contact reports, beginning with agriculture and natural resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report.
Arts and sciences.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those of you who are in arts and science or your second degree is in arts and science, I know the SPICE department hasn't sent anything out. So personally, I had to email my advisor for my advising time, which I finally did today. So if you're not getting anything in our college, email your advisor because they'll set up their own individual thing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. College of Business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just all working on advising, things like that.
Thank you. College of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report.
Engineering and Applied Sciences.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report.
College of Health Sciences.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report.
College of Law.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report.
And School of Energy Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No report. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll now move on to old business, beginning with Senate Bill 2695, ASUW support of the implementation of the public art plan. This bill was steered to Program and Institutional Development. Senator Welsh, can you please have your committee?
Point of order, we need a second reading of the bill.
Oh, thank you. Senator St. Marie, will you please proceed with the second reading of Senate Bill 2695?
Whereas the purpose of the Associated Students of the University of Wyoming ASUW student government is to serve our fellow students in the best manner possible, and therefore be it enacted by the Associated Students of the University of Wyoming ASUW student government that a total of $230,754.69 be allocated from the Student Services Endowment, Facilities Endowment, to fund the areas and projects outlined in Addendum A. Therefore, be it further enacted that upon passage, the ASUW president shall work in coordination with the ASUW Business Office to ensure these units receive their appropriations before the end of fiscal year 2020. And therefore, be it further enacted that any unspent monies from this allocation be returned back to the Facilities Endowment.
Thank you. Now the bill was steered to Program and Institutional Development. Senator Welsh, can you please have your committee recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Program and Institutional Development recommends a do pass.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the floor to pass Senate Bill 2695?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. We're now on discussion of Senate Bill 2695. Senator Welsh, if you wanted to start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had both authors in committee today, so most of the discussion was just clarification on this legislation. And yes, we didn't have any issues with it and agree that we should start moving forward with the campus art plan. And this just provides like some tangible motive to go forward with actually getting bigger art projects on campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion on this bill? Okay. If there is none, if there are no objections, we'll dispense with the third reading. And Senator St. Marie, will you please call the roll?
Senator Alrajal.
Yes.
Can you repeat that?
What?
What's your vote on Senate Bill 2695, Senate Resolution 2695?
Yes.
On Salmi Smith?
Aye.
Applegate?
Aye.
Baker? Nope, sorry, my bad. Brooks?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Doran?
Aye.
Fitchy?
Aye.
Halsted?
Aye.
Hedge?
Aye.
Hoffman?
Aye.
Houghton?
Aye.
Mulhall?
Aye.
Pearson?
Aye.
Rooney?
Aye.
Rubano?
Aye.
St. Marie? Aye. Titus?
Aye.
Trent?
Aye.
Vetter?
Aye.
Welsh?
Aye.
And first year Senate?
Aye.
Thank you. With the unanimous vote of 21-0, Senate Bill 2695 is passed. And just a quick clarification for everyone in the Senate, there was a reading error. So during the second reading, we had Senate Bill 2697 read instead of 2695. But I hope everyone understood what they were voting for anyway. So with that, we will now move on to new business, beginning with Senate Bill 2697, expenditures of the ASUW Student Services Endowment. Senator St. Marie, will you please proceed with the first reading?
Okay, I have the right one this time. Whereas the purpose of the Associated Students of the University of Wyoming ASUW student government is to serve our fellow students in the best manner possible, and whereas the ASUW Student Services Endowment Facilities Endowment was created through Senate Bill number 2042, and whereas the purpose of this endowment is to finance the enhancement of the student service buildings, venues, or other projects at the University of Wyoming as designated by the ASUW student government, and whereas Senate Bill number 2561 dedicated a total of $335,000 from the facilities endowment toward both the union visioning plan and the 10-year housing plan. And whereas Senate Bill number 2561 enacted that any unspent monies returned to the endowment, and whereas only $220,000 of our dedicated funds will be spent. And whereas as of January 31st, 2020, there is $604,206.45 available for the appropriation from the facilities endowment, and $384,206.45 of these funds are undedicated and available for use. And whereas the 107th administration has identified various areas on campus that could benefit from these funds, such as special projects requests that were not funded due to lack of funds in multiple areas within the University of Wyoming Union. And whereas Addendum A outlines all proposed expenditures from the facilities endowment, therefore be it enacted by the Associated Students of the University of Wyoming ASUW student government that a total of $230,754.69 be allocated from the Student Services Endowment, Facilities Endowment to fund the areas and projects outlined in Addendum A, and therefore be it further enacted that upon passage, the ASUW president shall work in coordination with the ASUW business office to ensure these units receive their appropriations before the end of fiscal year 2020. And therefore, be it further enacted that any unspent monies from this allocation be returned back to the facilities endowment.
Thank you. This bill was dual steered to budget and planning and program and institutional development. So please have your committee recommendations where this bill will be read for second and third reading next Tuesday. And just a quick reminder as well, if you do have your camera turned off and you have the ability to have it turned on, we would appreciate that just to try and mimic what it would look like on a typical Tuesday night, and just so we get your full attention. With that, we will now move on to our next piece of new business, which is the nomination and selection of our student at large for the month of March. So I will go ahead and take nominations if there are any. Advisor Lozano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to nominate Nicole Sanders.
Point of order. I don't think that's allowed because she's a member of one of the three branches of the ASUW.
We nominate execs for this award.
An exec hasn't been nominated this year.
They have in the past. And have won the SAL of the Year award.
Okay. Up to the chair.
Yeah, I'll allow it. Okay. Well, in that case, President Wilkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to nominate Caitlin McLennan for SAL of the month.
Thank you. Senator Rubano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to nominate Tanner Grieg.
Anyone else have nominations for SAL of the month? Okay, Advisor Lozano, would you like to speak on behalf of Nicole Sanders?
I would, thank you. So two things. One is that she has worked pretty hard on our SLS review that is currently in the end stages and has been working on that over the break as well. She put in a lot of time as far as verifying students for the ASUW Emergency Assistance Fund. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And President Wilkins, would you like to speak on behalf of Caitlin McLennan?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Caitlin is one of the chairs of the Sustainability Coalition. She works closely with Director of Wellness and Sustainability Savage to help kind of lead and chair the food and security task force we have on campus. Caitlin's also been really instrumental in helping kind of bring to my, as well as Director of Wellness and Sustainability Savage's attention, kind of how we can go about a relief fund. Her work, as well as Addison, who is also one of the chairs, really helped kind of brainstorm how we wanted to approach that, and it made it a lot easier for me to go to administration and basically say, this is kind of stuff we're looking for, and this is what would be really beneficial. So while it's easy for me to kind of bring that stuff forward, it really wouldn't have been as possible without Caitlin's help, as well as Addie's. Caitlin's just a really great person to work with, and she's been super helpful in making sure that the partnership with the Sustainability Coalition is taken off, as well as just being a really involved student overall, even if it's not here directly within ASUW. Thank you.
Thank you. And Senator Urbano, would you like to speak on behalf of Tanner Gregg?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we all obviously know Tanner. He was a senator at the beginning of the year, but he's done a lot of work with the Veteran Services Center. I know even last year he started working with them, and then obviously he was an author on that piece of legislation earlier this semester on giving all veterans and veteran-connected students priority registration within the university, which wasn't really continuing unless you were on I'm struggling for the words, unless you were receiving money from the government for military service. And so he just was a really big part of that. And so I think he deserves some recognition. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So those are your three nominees for SAL of the month of March. It's Nicole Sanders, Caitlin McLennan, and Tanner Gregg. And I believe our Chief of Legislative Affairs is setting up a poll option for everyone to participate in on Zoom. Oh, you're muted.
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I am setting that up. I'm just going to wait for Senator of the Month nominations as well, just so we can get both of those at the same time.
Perfect. Okay, so with that, we will take nominations for Senator of the month of March.
Clarification, will you go over who all has gotten it this year so far?
Yes, Senator Mulhall, Trent, Welsh, and previous Senator Conard. I believe those are the four. Am I missing anybody?
Okay. Senator Welsh, you have our first nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to nominate Senator Titus.
Okay. Advisor Lozano?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to nominate Senator Welsh.
Senator Welsh won in November.
My bad, I rescind.
All right. Any other nominations?
I didn't quite understand what that was. Who was nominating there?
Yeah. What can I say? Okay, well, if there are no other nominations then for Senator of the month of March, it goes to Senator Titus. And yeah, we can go ahead and do the...
I launched the poll.
Oh, great.
Can everybody see that?
No.
Sweet.
You have to click the polls bottom and the bar at the bottom.
Should be right next to manage participants.
I'm not seeing that option.
Okay,
You're right. I probably am only seeing it because I'm a co-host.
Yeah, me too.
Attendees are now viewing questions. It says it should be launched for everyone.
It has an option for me to launch polling, and every time I click it, it says failed to launch for some weird error. Oh, there it is.
Okay, should be good now.
Can everybody see it now? Oh, okay, let me relaunch it. Nothing. Oh, sweet.
Should still be a few more senators that need to vote.
We'll give it like 30 more seconds.
All right. So with that, Tanner Gregg was selected as our student at large for the month of March. With that ending, we will now move on to our final two pieces of new business, and I would again yield to our Chief of Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This first one is just to suspend that technology again. This is just extending it to the end of fiscal year 2020, only again because we know that the first meeting of the 108th administration is going to have to be over Zoom. They can't meet in person. So we're doing this for until the end of fiscal year 2020, and hopefully that does it, and we don't have the coronavirus still happening in August and September. So that's the first one. It's through the end of fiscal year 2020.
Okay. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to suspend Article 6, Section 6.03, Subsection 3 of the ASUW Rules and Procedures for the remainder of fiscal year 2020.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. This motion is non-debatable. All those in favor of that suspension, please say aye.
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 And all those opposed? And abstentions. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and it is suspended. And I would yield again to the Chief of Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This second one is to suspend. There's a thing in there about ex officios having to attend a certain amount of meetings. We don't want to place an undue burden on them, so this is just suspending that for the rest of the 107, so we can keep all our ex officios, and then hopefully they come to the meetings. This isn't not allowing them to come to meetings. They're still more than welcome here, but this is just not requiring them to be at meetings. I asked them if they wanted to give a report to Senate, they can send that to me and I'll distribute that. Likewise, but this is just to suspend them not having to be here every week, and they can still keep their seat on Senate, or their speaking rights at least.
Okay, thank you. So I would entertain a motion to suspend Article 2, Section 2.02, Subsection 7, Paragraph C, Clause A of the ASUW bylaws for the remainder of the 107th administration.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. This motion is non-debatable. All those in favor of that suspension, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Abstentions? The opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and it is suspended. With that, we'll now move on to announcements. Does anyone have any announcements this evening? Advisor Lozano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to let everybody know that while the Staff Senate President let us know that Staff Appreciation Day has been canceled, that our accountant, Shelley Schaaf, was actually nominated for 2 awards. She was nominated for the J.K. Humphrey Inspirational Staff Award and the E.G. Meyer Family Award. So all these nominations and everything were due before all of the COVID madness started. So we've talked tonight about how hard she's been working on our current situation, but obviously her work before that has been well noticed. And so I just wanted to let you all know that she had been nominated for 2 awards. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other announcements this evening? Okay, if not, we'll now move on to processing. I don't know if we need to turn off the recording.
Yeah, can I have the floor?
Cool. Any comments under process?
Oh.
Yeah, Chief of Legislative Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stopped the recording. I don't think we'll continue to have processing in the next meetings just because we did suspend that part, and I don't know what we can see how it goes going forward. But it's obviously not going to be on the recording, but these are open to everybody always. So we'll see how that goes going forward, I guess. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any more comments? Okay, well, the only thing for me, thank you again, everyone, for being here. I know this is a little bit different than usual, but we appreciate your attention here. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. So with that, this meeting's adjourned.